Ah, what a beautiful, tepid, hot, lazy day here in Pennsylvania. I'm at another little stream, much smaller stream. It's so hot and it's so lazy, even looks it. Get that spider out of my face as he comes down. Even the spiders are lazy. Everybody is really chilling it, trying to keep cool today. Now, that's not why I'm here to talk just about the weather, though I do look for beautiful spots like this to bring my new material out. And I want to continue with what we've been talking about concerning the internal critique of the Qur'an. And we've been hitting that theme concerning the claims that Muslims make about their Qur'an, that it is the greatest wonder among the wonders of the world. And I want to continue that by comparing the Qur'an with the Bible, and with this book here and the Qur'an in this hand, because that's what they claim about this book. Yet when you look at these two together, when you look at both the Qur'an and the Bible together, you will see that as you compare them, there's really no comparison at all. None whatsoever. I'm just going to give you some examples here, and I'll put them on the screen so you can see what the two side by side. When you look at the Bible, especially, well, let's just look at some verses. Let's just look at some ideas within the Bible and compare them with the Qur'an. When you look at Surah chapter 16, verse 93, and chapter 76, verse 29 to 30, which talks about the fact that Allah controls everything. Everything is under His control. Compare that in the Bible with Luke chapter 15, verse 3 to 4, and John chapter 10, verse 14 and verse 18, where you can see that on this side here, the Bible, God lets us choose. Just look at the comparison. You can see the kind of God that within the Qur'an versus the kind of God we have in the Bible is quite different. One has total control of not only your salvation, but also of your thoughts and your actions. Whereas God, on this side, lets us choose our own salvation and also our thoughts and actions. In Surah 111, talks about the wrath of Allah. Now, I'm not going to use the Bible here. I'm just going to look at St. Francis of Assissi. When you look at his prayer and look and see how you can see the love of God, but you also see this all the way through the New Testament, the love of God, the fact that God sends one servant after another, woos His people back to Himself, and finally sends His own Son. The whole Bible is full of that kind of sacrificial agape love. Surah chapter 4, verse 74, verse 84, chapter 5, verse 33, chapter 48, verse 16 to 70, and it goes on and on about fighting your enemies, slaying your enemies, destroying them over and over again. Fight, 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 jihad, 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 over and over again. Look at that compared to Matthew chapter 5, verse 44, which says to love your enemies. In fact, that's the only reference in any scripture anywhere that I can find that says to love your enemies. So unique. Comparison, like with like, there is no like whatsoever. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, the entire chapter is one of love. What a contrast to Surah 4:74. Verse 84, 5:33. Slay those who stand against Allah and His Prophet. Crucify them and cut off their hands and feet from opposite ends. Thank God we don't have verses like that in the Bible. We don't have verses like that in the gospel of Jesus Christ. Surah 109, where it says that Allah leaves us alone and basically doesn't do much with us at all, just dictates from in heaven, and we're left on earth to pretty much try to struggle as best we can. Compare that with Psalm 23. I did that in an earlier episode, where God is our shepherd. He comes down and He protects us. He walks with us through the shadow of death. I mean, it's great to see the imagery that we see in Psalm 23. What a contrast to Surah 109. Surah 24, verse 2, it says to flog the sinner, in this case the adulterer, flog them 100 lashes. Compare that with John chapter 8, verse 30 to 12, where Christ tells the Pharisees to forgive the adulteress. What a contrast. Surah 2, ayah 222 and 223, and chapter 4, verse 11, verse 24, verse 34, and verse 176, which denigrates and puts women down. We're going to talk more about that. We're going to unpack those verses in some other episodes yet to come. But when you look and see what the Quran says about women, it puts women in a second-class status, and that's why we're going to spend more time on it. And you compare that with Ephesians chapter 5, verse 22 to 25, and Galatians chapter 3, verse 28. Take a look and see what it says about women, that we are to love our wives as Christ loved the church, even to the point of dying for our wives. 1 Corinthians 7 looks at the marriage and shows that a husband is equal to a wife, and wife is equal to a husband. Even their bodies are equal. Take and compare that with the Quran, and we'll do more about that and flesh it later on. Surah chapter 9, verse 29, where it says clearly that the Muslims are to fight the Jews and the Christians. The Al-Kitab, that's us. They're to fight us. Verses 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7, which it says we're to love everybody. We're not to fight anybody. Oh, I love also when you get to the New Testament, when Christ, there in Matthew 26, when he was on his way, he was being arrested, and Peter took out the sword to cut off the ear of the servant who was arresting him. Jesus took the ear, put it back on the servant, and turns towards Peter and says, put away your sword. You're not even to defend me like that, because he who uses the sword like that dies by the sword like that. What a contrast to Surah 9, ayah 29. Surah 33, ayah 53, and also to verse 56 and 57, where Allah curses those whom he dislikes, versus Matthew 20, verse 28, where Jesus serves and dies for everyone. Do you see the contrast? Are you seeing the contrast between these? I'm just giving you like with like. And then Surah 55, verse 46 to 60, and also chapter 56, verse 22 to 26, and verse 35 to 38. Look at paradise. Look at what Muslims are getting to, and when you see that, it's a very carnal paradise. We're going to do more about that later on in another episode. It's a very man-made paradise for men. I don't know what's there for women. In fact, I'd like to see some Muslims try to answer this. Can you come back and tell me what's waiting for women in paradise? It doesn't look like there's much. They have to wait upon men here. They have to wait upon men there. Hey, they never stop waiting upon men, according to chapter 55, chapter 56 of the Quran. Compare that with Revelation chapter 21, verse 1 to 8, and verse 22 to verse 27, and chapter 22, verse 1 to 6, where heaven is not a place where you wait upon others. It's a place where you are with God. That relationship that was broken at the very beginning of time is now repaired, according to Revelations chapter 21 and chapter 22. Whew, what a contrast. Now you say, hold on a minute, Jay, what you're doing, you're taking the best and the worst. And what I'm doing like with like. I'm trying to show that when you look at these different topics in both scriptures, when you look at both scriptures and you compare topic with topic, remember the Quran says, produce a surah like it. That's all it claims. Produce anything like it. And I'm producing one after another. I've given you quite a few examples here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 examples of where in every case the Bible comes out on top. In every case, not only the Bible comes out on top, but you can see that's the kind of God I'd like to follow. That's the kind of scripture I'd like to have as my scripture, and that's what I want for you as well. Yeah, produce any surah like it. In chapter 2, verse 23, it says that. In chapter 9, verse 16, it says that. In chapter 10, verse 38, and in chapter 17, verse 89, it says produce any surah, produce any verse, produce any book that can come close to the Quran. Now, we have shown you 8 different ones which are superior to the Quran. We're going to show you some more, but we're going to stop there now because this has gone far enough on this subject. You make your decision. Which book are you going to follow? The little blue book or the big brown book? I go for the bigger one, the better one, because it's so much more applicable. It's so much more relevant for today. It's great to be able to talk about the Bible as a contrast. It helps me in every debate. It helps me in every discussion. Okay, on this tepid, lazy stream, middle of Pennsylvania. I don't even know where I am. I just stopped up the road and decided to come off here because it's so beautiful. This is Jay, over and out.